So one of the major issues in the Middle East following World War II was the creation of Israel. And many Jewish people had begun to migrate to that region during the interwar period. And then after World War II, Britain basically didn't know what to do with this issue. And so, unable to resolve the conflict between the Jewish peoples who had settled in that region and the Palestinian peoples who were the people who had lived there but were getting kind of driven out, Britain didn't know what to do. And so they turned this issue over to the United Nations. And the United Nations proposed creating two separate states, Palestine and Israel. But the Arabs opposed this idea. They wanted control of the entire territory. And so finally in 1947, Britain kind of gives up and they withdraw out of that region, and a civil war breaks out almost immediately. And the Jews are going to proclaim their own separate state of Israel, and that's going to lead to conflict. Almost immediately, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and Iraq declare war on Israel. And they were hoping to kind of catch Israel off guard and be able to take them out before they could really organize. However, Israel's army was extremely well organized and actually achieved victory over these invaders. And as a result of that victory, they actually claimed territories much larger than what they were going to be granted by the United Nations. In Egypt, Gamal Nasser is going to seize power. Egypt's another one of these countries that's going to come under the increasing control of the military. And so military leaders like Nasser are going to organize a group called the Free Officers Movement. And this was a military movement trying to end the Khedive rule in Egypt. And they also wanted land reform and more freedoms for the Egyptian peoples. And so the Free Officers Movement is successful in overthrowing Khedive rule, and Nasser is going to seize power in 1952. And so Nasser will become the prime minister of Egypt and implements a dictatorship. He tries to implement some land reform to move more land to the lower classes. He tries to improve education as well. He's also going to move to seize control of the Suez Canal. So Egypt had gained their independence during the interwar period after World War I and were under Khedive rule, but the Suez Canal remained under British control. And Nasser claimed it as Egypt's territory. And so they're going to claim the Suez Canal, and Britain and France were ready to go to war over the Suez Canal, but the United States actually steps in and supports Egypt's nationalization of the Suez Canal. And so Britain and France end up stepping down, and Egypt will gain control of the Suez Canal. And they're going to use the money from the Suez Canal to help build the Aswan Dam. And the idea was the Aswan Dam could be used to help clear out and open up more farmland, which in some regards it did, but ultimately the Aswan Dam becomes a huge catastrophe. It did open up some new farmlands, but it also caused the farmlands further down the Nile past the dam to become infertile. Furthermore, Egypt's huge population growth, the new farmland wasn't enough to keep pace with it. And so ultimately the Aswan Dam project was a huge disaster. But Egypt did gain back control of the Suez Canal. The idea of a pan-Arab nationalism. This is an idea to unify the Arabs into one secularized state and tried to downplay Islam and unite them under the common ethnic group. And Egypt was a big leader in this idea of a pan-Arab nation. However, ultimately, the idea would kind of begin to deteriorate.